Nation. We have candidate 3 here today, Rachel Haywire. Hello, Rachel Haywire. How are you?
Hi, pretty good. How are you doing?
Fantastic. So you're candidate 3, not last, but not least. You're running for a position to be the president of the United States in the Transhumanist Party in the presidential primary. Your campaign slogan is "Beyond the Center." You like futurist. You like futurist material. You like industrial music. You've written a book. You're an author, which we'll go into it a little bit later, called "The New Art Right." You have some pillar of philosophy called national futurism, which we'll also go into. You're an advocate for the transgressive arts. The Extreme Futurist Festival of 2011, you did that. You knocked that out of the park. It was a great success. And you're the CEO of Avant Design. Tell us more about you and who you are.
Hi, so as you said, I'm the CEO of Avant Design. It's a transgressive art company. We focus on designing for everybody in the entertainment and tech sectors that is looking for an anti-minimalist aesthetic. People are bored with what's currently out there. It just doesn't move them in a provocative way. So we seek to design for people that want something provocative and challenging. I'm the author of The New Art Right. It's about vanguarding the alt-right into a new faction of creatives, artists, musicians, filmmakers, photographers, philosophers, even weird poets that are seeking to create a new space in which they can philosophize and throw new events, even a new theater scene, something like a new dark surrealist movement. I also call it Dark Bohemia. The Extreme Futurist Festival, which I founded in 2011, was a creative art kind of festival merged with a high-tech transhumanist event. We booked everybody from Aubrey de Grey to Ben Goertzel to cyberpunk bands Atari Teenage Riot and Negative Land. We had transgressive cult favorite Lydia Lunch play. Some of my friends' bands like Sid Redman played. We had a lot of artists perform. We had a virtual violinist play. He went by the name of Dixon's Violin. We even had a guy named Zach Binger, who was making transhumanist comic books. He sold his comic books there. My friend James came from Mythos Media. He brought some of his books. One of them was called The Apocalypse at the End of the World. Just really good times for everybody. National futurism. I write about it in my book, The New Art Right. It's these breakaway nations of the mind where nationalists of these new psychic empires can kind of get together and build these totalitarian dictatorships of the mind through high technology. So I think that covers all the questions you asked.
Yeah, just a little bit on your background and who you are and things. Who do you who inspire
Okay.
who no well that's what we covered. Who inspires you? Like out of all those names you mentioned, you've got
Okay.
a vast array of people you just mentioned there.
Mm-hmm. So I've been inspired by several figures. I would say the Italian futurists, the industrial musicians, and the cyberpunk authors and the existential philosophers. I would say Nietzsche, of course. I found Nietzsche before I found anybody else. Then I would say Marionetti, D'Annunzio. I would say the band Skinny Puppy, Front 242, but also some more cyberpunk feminist authors like Kathy Acker. I would even say people like Nicole Blackman from bands like KMFDM, who also went on to do Recoil. So I've had a wide array of influences. I take from anything that interests me. I don't like to stick to one genre. I kind of like to create my own fusions based on my experiences of,
Very cool.
cultural strata that I've taken in. Yeah.
All right, cool. So we have a bunch of questions here that we're asking all the candidates as we go through. So we'll run through those now. And congratulations on the merchandise as well. I think it looks really good. It's very
Thank
cool.
you.
Where did you come up with the designs for those?
Okay, so I'm working with Transhumanist Tees now. They're just a company that I found online. They started following me on Instagram, and I like their designs. They had one called Futurist, and I'm going to take off my jacket now to sport one of them, actually, right now. This is another one of their shirts. I said, do you guys want to design Haywire shirts? They said yes, and suddenly we're in business.
Cool. All right, so let's go through these questions. What do you consider to be the most important aspects of transhumanism, and what kinds of impacts should it have upon the world?
The most important aspect of transhumanism to me is what I would consider to be visionary technology. And I would tie that into the funding of the transgressive arts. You know what? I'm just going to take this jacket off so I can sport this transhumanist t-shirt. So when I think of visionary technology, I think of everything from VR to AR and everything that goes in between that, everything that goes above and beyond that. We have these incredible minds right now as artists, as creators, as philosophers, as weird occult extremists, so to speak. And the possibilities of what we can do with technology are endless. So I really advocate for growing technology at an exponential rate so we can explore these technologies and really extend our minds to greater capacities so we can expand these technologies and explore these imperiums of our consciousness.
What are the areas of the US Transhumanist Party platform that you identify with most strongly?
Well, definitely life extension. And I would say for all human beings. Right now, there is a little bit of an elite that has control of life extension technology, and especially with the outrageous prices of cryopreservation with companies like Alcor. I'd like to have life extension for all human beings, to create cryonics, to subsidize cryonics, actually, and to create public education on transhumanism. So all areas of the public can know about transhumanism. I want to do outreach to make transhumanism popular again. And I want to create cultural programs to make transhumanism a part of mainstream culture. So bringing awareness to science through the arts and making it so transhumanism is widely known, advocating for science, advocating for reason, and advocating for longevity.
What are, in your view, some of the major problems in contemporary American society, and how can transhumanism aid in resolving these problems?
People have this binary groupthink. They believe that they need to be either left, right, or center. I believe that we need to go beyond the center, and that going beyond the center means becoming a transhumanist. It's like you need to be either a leftist, a rightist, or some kind of dull intellectual dork web centerist. Well, I think we should go beyond the center and become transhumanist, and we can solve that by joining the Transhumanist Party and creating a fourth or maybe even a fifth political theory.
In your view, what aspects of contemporary American politics work well, and what aspects of contemporary American politics are broken and or malfunctioning?
Well, I think what works really well is the entertainment sector of politics. Now, a lot of people, they say negative things about it. They say that it's all a simulation, but Andrew Yang said that politics was like a simulation, and I think that's fantastic. Baudrillard, a French existential post-leftist philosopher, talked about that a lot, and I fully agree with him. I think that the entertainment sector of politics is a beautiful thing, and I love to see politics and entertainment merge, and I think that we should continue down that path. What is politics if not a show? I think that's working really well. I also like the way that people, dissident creators, such as yourself, are given a voice with the internet, and I would like to see more independent candidates run. Thanks to the current political system, we have renegades like Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang running. We have wild cards like Vermin Supreme doing their thing. We have fun libertarian candidates that are going out in the wild and advocating for absolute wildness. And I love to see that happening. While I don't agree with a lot of things that a lot of these candidates say on the more extreme ends of the spectrum, it's just really cool to see people from these extremist parties having a voice, just to hear these diversities of radical opinions. So I think that that is working really well, the access that independent political candidates have to these new forms of media right now.
And what aspects of contemporary American politics are broken and or malfunctioning?
Everything that I did not just mention.
Everything. Okay.
I mean, where do we start? In America, we have a broken two-party system. We have mindless censorship of dissenting views. I'm not just talking about censorship of conservatives. I'm talking about censorship of pretty much everybody who doesn't agree with the dominant status quo. I had a friend who got banned from Twitter for criticizing Sam Harris. she wasn't banned for complaining about, you know, Nazis or communists. She was banned for calling Sam Harris an asshole. Now she doesn't have a Twitter account. But that was it. She said, Sam Harris, you're an asshole. She will never have a Twitter account again. There is a lot of censorship going on if you criticize the new gatekeepers. So yes, people lose their jobs for criticizing leftists all the time. I'm fully 100% against that. Nobody should ever lose their job for criticizing some leftists, but people are losing their jobs and their accounts for criticizing centrists now. Nobody should ever lose their job or their account for criticizing anybody at all. In America, we have something called the First Amendment. We should be able to use it. I hear stories that are similar in Australia of people losing their jobs, their accounts. I remember a time, I have a friend in Germany. I sent him a video to Laibach, one of my favorite industrial bands. He told me that it was banned in his own country. He could not play the Laibach video. It was considered to be hate speech. We're talking about a musical band that uses fascist imagery as a parody. They are an apolitical art band, for the record. He could not play a Laibach video in his own country. That's one problem in millions. I mean, where do we even begin? We have a slow bureaucratic system. It is extremely inefficient. I think of that movie, what is it, Zootopia, where you go to the DMV and you have slugs representing the DMV workers. We have a horrible medical system where people from the top to the bottom cannot get the medical treatment that we need. We have a horrible insurance system in America. People across the board feel divided based on factors out of their control. We have a centrist, cronyist global system dividing regular people from each other based on superficial differences. I mean, I could go on about this for hours. I mean, maybe you want to be more specific because there are so many problems.
It's your answer, so I'll just leave that there.
Yeah, I mean, there are just so many. Yeah.
If elected President of the United States, what policy measures will you pursue?
First and foremost, I would seek out funding for the transgressive arts. I believe that there are things like school shootings that are being unfortunately enacted because people feel like they don't have access to a community of like-minded individuals. If we have funding for the transgressive arts, then people can take out their angst and their hatred through music and through creativity. They can find like-minded people in their community in which they can express their ideas with. They can have money so they can make a living. This also ties into my policy of universal basic income, of giving every citizen in America $2,000 a month. I want to do this by relocating military spending. I want to drastically cut down spending for the surveillance state. The money we're spending on the surveillance state and military, it's just ridiculous. Overseas wars, I don't want to spend any of this overseas money to go to this Russian Cold War. It's ridiculous. So we've got to cut that back. We have to release nonviolent drug offenders and sex workers from prison. If we cut down on all of this spending, it's going to be so massive that we actually are going to be able to give every citizen in America $2,000 a month. While doing this and giving funding for the transgressive arts, I believe that we're going to make transhumanism cool and fun. And that's what I would like to do again.
All right, so I'll pick your brain on some of these policies a little bit more. So, yeah. Life extension for all humans, is that all US citizens or is that all humans across the globe? Because Mr. Holstoppel was talking about 222, which is essentially in line with the UN sustainability goals, which is a kind of a global enterprise. What are you saying here by life extension for all humans? Are you implying a universalist care or is it a US nationalist policy?
I have no interest in working with the UN at this point in time. It would start out as a nationalist policy, but I'm interested in expanding it internationally in the future, though I'm not currently interested in doing negotiations with the UN, but I would advocate it as a universal policy in the long run. But I think we need to start on our own soil first, without a doubt.
And so, like, why is this policy important? Why is life extension for all humans important when there's so many downsides to overpopulation, resource depletion, and on and on and on?
That's a great question. I'm just going to answer you honestly. I worked in Silicon Valley, and I worked with some people that were very, very elitist, and they didn't want people below a certain income bracket or who displayed a certain middle underclass behaviors to have access to life extension. They wanted it to be for a small few, and they didn't want anybody else to have access to the technology. And I think it's time to take it out of their hands and bring it into the hands of the public. I'm not saying like Robin Hood to the max, don't allow rich people to live forever, but I'm saying like allow American citizens to have access to life extension technology, make it so cryonics is affordable to the American public, subsidize it, let people upload their minds if they want to be clear. Don't force anybody to live forever. Now, there are a lot of extremists in the transhumanist community who say that if you don't want to live forever, you're some kind of death cultist. To be clear, I do not agree with them. I think if you want to die, you should have the right to die. That is a controversial thing to say in the transhumanist community. I will probably lose votes for saying that. But if you don't want to live forever, you shouldn't have to. But if you do want to live forever, you should be able to, regardless of how much money you have. And I don't think that anybody in Silicon Valley should be able to stop you from that.
So this term life extension, is this a specific technology set, or does this include a lot of other medical innovations as well, just basic hospital care, treatment, education on nutrition, and other things like that?
See, now you're getting into the nitty-gritty of transhumanist politics. Many would say that it only includes transhumanist cryonics. Some would say that it includes basic nutrition. Some would say life extension is going to the gym and getting a good workout. It really depends on what company or social actor that you're talking to. It's a loaded question because there are so many people that are trying to sell.
But what is Rachel Haywire's policy?
Life extension involves any transhumanist technology in which the human is extending their lifespan.
Public education on transhumanism. Why is that important? Why is getting the information out there? And is this an age-related? Is this an age-related policy? Are you going to educate all age groups or just younger age groups through the schooling system, for example?
Well, I think it's important to educate the youth. They're not aware of transhumanism a lot of the time. They think it's just the sci-fi fantasy, and I think it's important that we let them know that we're actually working on it and that we actually are making it happen. But I think it should be something that everybody knows about. Elderly people that might feel like they're at the end. They might be at the end. It might benefit them to know that there are technologies available that could make new options available to them. So I think it should be widely accessible knowledge to all of our population in our great nation, and I think it's important for people to know about it. There aren't any transhumanist courses in our schools, but there are useless classes and things that people have absolutely no reason to be taking some of these classes, many which I went to myself. I remember that there was a class I went to on something like social norms in college, and it was about like how to obey, like that was what the course was for. And I remember like asking a question, and then I got kicked out of the class. I would have much rather learn about transhumanism. So
Andrew Yang's, sorry.
No, go ahead. There's so much useless stuff in the classes. So go ahead, Andrew Yang.
So Andrew Yang has a UBI policy. His is 1,000 a month for every citizen. Yours is 2,000. Why is this an important policy? Why is handing out free taxpayer money important for you? Why is there a UBI important?
It's important to me because I'm a freelancer in the gig economy, and I'm also an aspirational CEO. Just to be clear, that's not the same as an aspiring CEO. I don't have dreams of becoming some wealthy billionaire. I'm just a CEO with my own company that is Avant Design. I also run a dissident media platform called Trigger Warning. And it is difficult for people like me that run our own independent businesses that are also freelancers to make it, especially if we live in big cities like San Francisco and New York. And people like us, we need more than $1,000 a month to survive. Now think about people that are doing worse than me. People that are unemployed, underemployed, people that are working really, really shitty jobs that can't get a break, people that don't have the time to come on shows like this. They're not going to survive on $1,000 a month. Andrew Yang is fantastic for having gotten the UBI discussion off the ground as a politician, but $1,000 a month is not going to cut it. But what we can cut is military spending. What we can cut is nonviolent drug offenders and sex workers from prison. What we can cut is the spending on the surveillance state, and we can cut that spending by a lot to give everybody $2,000 a month in our country so we can all live better lives. My fan base, my demographic, are other artists, other creatives, other people like me with their own independent businesses. We want better. We deserve better. We are better. We are greater. We are higher. We are displaced aristocrats, not to sound pretentious and art faggy, though I know I do, but I am the author of the new art right, so take that for what you want. I think we need $2,000 a month, and I advocate for people like me. It's the least that I can do in this decadent postmodern wasteland. I mean,
Legal protection for cryonic patients. Is this very important?
it is very important to me. A close friend of mine had a friend named Danielle Baker who was supposed to be cryogenically suspended, but what happened to her was absolutely tragic. Her wishes were not honored, and she ended up with a really shitty burial instead. There was also an instance at Alcor Life Foundation where this guy, Dr. Lawrence Pilgrim, he was supposed to have a full body suspension, but because of some contract that was not honored properly, which to me, though I don't know what happened for sure, seemed like behind the scenes drama in which somebody pissed somebody else off. I'd heard rumors about somebody sleeping with somebody, but his wishes were not honored. And instead of him getting a full body preservation, they just chopped off his head, like boom, chop off the head. And now there's like a whole lawsuit. It created really bad PR for the entire cryonics movement. Now Alcor is under fire. Max Moore seems to have stepped down from his role a little bit to focus on legal issues, whatever that means. It's a disaster. So, people like Lawrence Pilgrim and Danielle Baker, the future Lawrences and Danielles, they need legal protections. So these kinds of instances don't happen again, and especially new people that are seeking cryonic suspensions. They need to have a better chance at being suspended properly. We need cryonics to be taken seriously. We need a better cryonics industry. We need a better life extension industry.
So on foreign policy, your foreign policy is very libertarian-esque policy. It simply says an end to overseas intervention. What does that mean? Why would you do that?
I want to withdraw all of our troops from Iraq and Afghanistan. I don't think we need to be in there. I don't think we need to be spending on these military affairs. I think we need to keep to ourselves. I believe in native isolationism. I make an exception for China because they need to leave us alone. They have invaded us in many ways, especially in the tech industry. So I would say that would be one case where I might be like a tiny bit hawkish. But really, if they just, quit taking our pat-ins and kind of step away from the tech industry, I'd be happy to cease fire with them. But I think like if anybody's a threat, it's China, certainly not Iraq or Afghanistan. And now we're talking about like attacking Venezuela. Like leave Venezuela alone, as Chris Cooker would say about Britney Spears. Cut it out, you guys. Like why are we spending all this money? We have homeless people on the streets. We have crackheads in San Francisco that are attacking innocent people. Our homeless rate is at a rapidly increasing figure. It's absurd. We don't need this. And meanwhile, where we're spending our money on military, it's over the top. I want to end this. We need to stop it.
Okay. Restrictions to imperialist global trade. Does this mean you want to go to a mercantilist type economy like the British did? You want, what does this mean?
Well, it ties into what I think about China. I would like to stop a lot of our trade with them, especially in the tech industry. And this is probably my most controversial stance. And this is where I split with probably 80% of people who work in the tech economy. I'd rather stop doing trade with China with a lot of our technology. Besides the fact that they continue to steal our patents and the fact that they have an authoritarian communist dictatorship that has invaded every aspect of their culture. That's not to say that they don't have individual renegades and scientists that are doing incredible things. They are also very hard to compete with labor-wise. They are extremely obedient in a way that doesn't really lend itself to free thought. Not all of their citizens, not all Chinamen, but many of their citizens. And I think if we stop doing trade with them, there are so many other countries that are building incredible technology. Like I was talking to a friend that had lived in Singapore, and he was talking about all of the great innovations that were occurring in cryptocurrency there. And I would like to see us do some more trade over there. I'd like to see us do some more trade with Germany, with Italy. I've heard about breakthrough technological innovation in India. So I would like to see restrictions on trade with China. Just to start with, I think that we need to do less trading in general. We need to be giving more money to Americans that are building technology here at home.
Okay. Decriminalization of all non-lethal substances.
Decriminalization of all non-lethal substances. If the substance is not killing you, why the hell should anybody tell you that you can't use it? It's completely illogical. And the fact that people are in prison for using a non-lethal substance is absurd. It's very important that we have funding for LSD and MDMA as therapeutic remedies, because these are breakthrough substances that were once legal, that helped people overcome PTSD, anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder. But the fact that non-lethal substances are illegal is one of the most backwards things that I have heard in a while. When people talk about gay marriage this and racism and homophobia, but they always seem to leave out the fact that it is still illegal to put what you want into your own body when it doesn't harm you.
Yeah, the libertarians are all up in arms about it. They won't win over many conservatives with that one, though.
Again, with conservatives that are against non-lethal substances, I think that it is a lot of conservative virtue signaling. This is like we were talking about earlier, how they're just trying to be the new liberals. Why do they care what somebody puts in their own body? They're going to say it's degenerate for somebody to do drugs, but how does it hurt them? It doesn't. Why do they care? I mean, even if they had a don't ask, don't tell policy, like how are they still so obsessed with what somebody else is doing to their own bodies? I don't understand it.
So you've mentioned this policy a few times now. Just expand on this policy. Release of non-violent drug offenders and sex workers from prison. Why are these two groups?
Because these two groups have been unjustly locked up for doing absolutely nothing that hurt anybody else. These sex workers have hurt nobody. They have performed consensual acts for money that they have earned. They've hurt nobody. They've made money. Why the hell are they behind bars? Completely inhumane. Same thing with drug offenders. They've hurt nobody. They've made money. They're capitalists. Why the hell are they behind bars? Makes no sense. Illogical. Our tax money is going to this. Why? No rhyme, no reason.
So we were talked about the UBI before and Andrew Yang and the economy, and this policy says better jobs and pay for working class Americans. So you want a UBI, you also want better jobs and work and pay for working class Americans. I know in America that you have an artificially low minimum wage, for example, $7 an hour.
Right.
We in Australia have one of the highest minimum wages in the world, at 19 or 20 or something like that.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
better jobs and pay for working class Americans, blue collar.
Yes, yes, blue collar. But I also mean blue collar in the tech industry, so working class tech. There is a working class tech sector. Few candidates have touched on this. Andrew Yang has a little bit. Normally, when people say working class, they refer to blue collar workers. But there is a working class tech sector that I belong to, that many others do. Not very many people have really gotten into it, but there are people that are slaving away coding from 9 to 5. I know a girl. She coded so hard that she got carpal tunnel syndrome, just coding all day. She worked 6 days a week, coding, 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 coding. I don't even know if she can use her hands anymore. People like that, they need better jobs. They need better pay. But our blue collar workers do too. Our construction workers, they need better pay. They need better jobs. They need better conditions. They need better health care. They need better lives. I would like to see more of a unity between the blue collar American construction class and the blue collar tech workers. I don't know if the working class tech sector is blue collar. I don't know. What are we? Are we silicon color? I don't know. Maybe we need to come up with a new term for us. Maybe we're purple color. I mean, I don't know if that one's been taken, but we're something. But I mean, whatever we are, we're going to go beyond the center. So here we are, right? I'm surprised that it really hasn't been coined yet. Like I called this alt tech for a while. That was my thing. And I'm releasing an album. I'm with my industrial music project called Alternative Technology. But you really think about it, that there is a big working class tech sector that hasn't really gotten representation, and I hope that I can help to represent us as a candidate.
So you become the president of the United States, which means you're talking federally here. So medical insurance for freelancers in the gig economy. If the gig economy isn't producing the income, then isn't the gig economy just supposed to be a side job? Isn't that what it's supposed to be? What do you mean medical insurance for people in the gig economy?
Well, the economy is changing. You can talk to like any post-Marxist philosopher who's been fed up with political correctness, and they can tell you that jobs are forever shifting. Now, as much as people like you and me might disagree with communists, they do have it correct when they say that the job market is in shambles. And because the job market is in shambles, we do need to create new economies. And when we're creating these new economies, these new gig economies are developing, in which everybody is an entrepreneur, everybody is a freelancer, everybody has a side hustle, if not 2 or 3 side hustles. I experienced this when I was living in LA. I had a roommate. She worked 5 jobs. She was a consultant, she was a painter, she was a speaker, she was a PowerPoint designer, and she also worked at a tech company doing IT work. Just another worker. She had no medical insurance. People like that are the norm. And then they actually come off as very affluent hipsters. You might think they're yuppies, but they're really struggling. And I would like to see people like that, people like us, have medical insurance, because we pay out of pocket, and or we pay for our own insurance, if we're not just completely paying for our own medical care entirely. And I think that that's wrong, and somebody's going to say, some hardcore libertarian's going to say, you're entitled. They're going to call me entitled. I know it. Somebody's going to be typing it in the comment section. They're going to say, bitch, you're entitled. You're entitled. You're entitled. And I'm going to say, I am entitled to get in something better than this shit, because I have worked my fucking ass off. As you are slaving away at your 9 to 5 job, I am running 2 companies. I have 7 clients right now. I'm appearing on shows, podcasts. I am writing articles day by day. I am designing logos. You got your medical insurance? So yeah, I think that maybe I'm entitled to some better medical care, and I think that my friends are too. And I would like to advocate for that. Yes, absolutely, 100%. And I think that this could happen through the blockchain too. This ties into my cryptocurrency healthcare plan. A lot of people have been asking me about that. I think that we need cryptocurrency healthcare for specialized treatments. A lot of the healthcare that we need is unaffordable. Even if we have good insurance, even if we have good 9 to 5 jobs, the people who accuse others of entitlement, Even these people, they can't afford a lot of the treatments that they need if they end up with some esoteric condition. Well, cryptocurrency healthcare could help them too, because they could pay for their treatment in Ethereum. And all we need is some open-minded doctors who have been practicing for a while, who want to take a leap into the future, who are willing to accept cryptocurrency for healthcare. And I think we could really expand the medical field, which would expand life extension and do a lot of good for the cause of transhumanism.
Just to clarify, on this show, we talk about the Karl Marx theory that at the end of the capitalist system, you get financialization of everything. So I don't think we totally disagree on that. I actually promote that point a lot, which is why I talk about detonation and nearing the end, we talk about debt a lot. But anyway, so moving on, this is a big policy for you, funding for the transgressive arts. What is it? Why should people be concerned? What does it do to the psyche and the health of the people?
Right. So my theory is that the transgressive arts is the fundamental force that builds civilization. Everything from fashion to architecture to philosophy to music is created by the transgressive arts itself. Whether we're talking about composers like Wagner, or movements such as the Italian Futurists or the French Surrealists, whether we're talking about existential philosophy or we're talking about classical literature. The transgressive arts is this Promethean renaissance of creativity, what I refer to in my book as the dark bohemia, what I've also dubbed the new art right. And if we don't have funding for the transgressive arts, all we're going to have is this cold, dry, as Spengler would call it, a decline of the West. And I really do think that this lack of funding for the transgressive arts, this kind of death of the spirit, so to speak, is a cause of a lot of violence in this world. You fund the renegades, you fund the outcasts, you fund the extremists, quote unquote, and we're going to have a more creative, more visionary world in which people have a better life. People are getting paid to express themselves. People are less violent. People are happier. We have a thriving, beautiful imperium full of creativity. We have a renaissance. We have a new insurrection. That's what I fully advocate for. When I was in Portland, I was hanging out at an anarchist squad. There were some neo-folk musicians there. There were some philosophers there. They were trying to get their books out. They had no social skills. It was a pretty rough situation. I'm not going to lie. There were 7 people living there. And I just remember this girl, she was singing to me. She had one of the most beautiful voices I had ever heard in my entire life. She was paying $300 a month, living in desolate conditions. And she sang better than any mainstream artist that I had heard in years. And I thought to myself, you need some fucking money. Somebody needs to pay you. You're a genius. It was a really intense moment for me, not to get all bleeding heart on you, but she needed some fucking money. She was incredible.
Yeah, so the internet initially helped. Just talking about this whole money situation, the internet initially helped artists, but then over time you've seen Web 3.0 might fix this though, but over time you've seen the diminishment of the artist's income, especially with music. Music is the primary one. Art, in terms of contextual art and real art in terms of paintings and things, that has actually gone up because of the hyperinflation and people using it as a money laundering tool. But artists who create music has definitely dropped off as these sort of mega platforms and monoliths and Sonys and all these have sort of destroyed the music network through copyright law, which would be something I think you would know a lot about. Copyright law.
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember the first time that I released an Experiment Haywire album. There was music of mine on SoulSeek within an hour. I think it might have been because a competitor of mine in the music industry had given him a demo. I think he might have uploaded it to SoulSeek for people to download as like some kind of like weird revenge competitor thing. We get by on merchandise, we get by on touring, or we just realize we're not going to make it as musicians and work other jobs. very few people in the industrial music scene make our livings as industrial musicians. Many of us, we charge for remixes. What a few of my friends did, they ended up making soundtracks for movies and video games, which was what got them ahead. One of my friends, Jamie Valentine, she has a project called Kindergarten. She ended up making soundtracks for haunted houses. I don't know if that's how she makes her full living, but she ended up getting a job working for haunted houses. So now she does soundtracks for them. So, you know, you expand out, or you become a more mainstream artist. But just making money as an underground musician, you don't do it. You either become a mainstream musician, or you make film soundtracks, or you make video game soundtracks, or you sell merchandise.
Yeah. So greater awareness on neurodiversity. What is neurodiversity, and why do people need to know about it?
Okay, so neurodiversity would be anything that goes outside of the lines of neurotypicality. There are some people that believe that neurotypicality is the old human race, baseline humanity, human 1.0, the Untermensch, if you want to be crude and edgy, where post-neurotypicality, ASPI, FASHB, if you want to be edgy, is the human 2.0, the next step of evolution. And neurodiversity at its core is just simple neurological differences, mutations, so to speak, of the mind, whether it's something like Asperger's syndrome or ADD, something like a schizoaffective, or just maybe having your mind go a little faster, or maybe having visions that might be considered a little crazy to some people, but in some cultures that might be considered shamanism. You know, one culture's a shaman is another culture's schizophrenic. There are also people on the autistic spectrum who are absolute geniuses. You have people like Gary Newman, one of my favorite musicians, who is known for being autistic, among being one of the greatest musicians who ever lived. And I think it's important that people know, especially as transhumanists, that neurodiversity is an issue that we're currently dealing with, so we can learn how to scale it, so we can learn how to optimize it, and so we can see how it relates to evolution. I've read studies about how there were genes that people identified in people that had autism that were actually related to the next step of evolution. There was a gene identified that made people conform. I can send you the study if you don't believe it. There was a conformity gene identified that correlated more to neurotypicality. So if we have a study on neurodiversity, if we begin really researching what it's like to be autistic, to have ADHD, and this can also tie into funding for psychedelics for therapy, we can begin to explore this fabulous world of neurodiversity. No, I'm not saying like glorify the insane. You know, I'm not saying like let's have a free parade of mentally ill people. That can be fun if the fashion is interesting. But I'm just saying like let's have a greater awareness on this. And instead of having these social activist avatars that say I am bipolar, you know, here's my mentally ill, you know, Facebook flag. Let's really explore it scientifically. Let's have funding so we can see the way that these minds are working.
Okay, so something that's really like a cornerstone of your foreign policy, and something that I know that eats away at you, is China's social credit system. Okay, so China. Talk a little bit more about China, and then go into China's social credit system and why you don't want that to go to America.
I think they're monsters with the way that they're enforcing it. I'm sure everybody's seen the Black Mirror episode Nosedive. I think that's what they're headed toward, but far worse. I read a story about people in China with low social credit not being able to own pets. So if your social credit is low enough in China, you cannot own a pet. If you're in debt in China, other citizens can find out about it with an app. So if you're in debt, people around you know. You're not allowed to take public transit if your social credit score is below a certain point. This is a literal dystopian nightmare. Now, here in America, we fantasize about dystopia. We jack off to it. We think it's hot. We think it's sexy. In China, they're actually living it. it's really horrific the way that they enforce it to such an extent. And there are people that defend it, even here in America. Google defends it because they say they're powerless against it. And what really frightens me about it, besides everything I've just said, is that people think, well, it's just the way, you take the path of least resistance because it's all about, strategic non-action. And then this is a part of a lot of Chinese philosophy too, strategic non-action. You go with the way of the world. You swim with the current. Well, if the current is to let the Chinese social credit system dominate our country's economy, like through doing trading with them, I don't want to swim with that current. I think it's time for us to wake up, especially in California, where we have Chinese social credit policies impacting American tech companies. We have ratings now, with apps like Uber and Lyft, and maybe we need that in some cases. But at what point does it end? At what point do we say enough is enough? At what point do we say I don't want to be rated? At what point do we opt out and say I don't want to be a part of this social credit economy? Because I think that we've reached that point now, and I think we need to put an end to it.
Something that I always find interesting in American politics, from just as a general comment, is that it's always funny to watch the other side, whether you're Republican or Democrat in a polarized system, say, well, we don't want to pass that law because that'll give the president too much power. And the other side says, no, we trust this one. And they say, but what about future ones? And they say, no, this guy will be the president forever. So they pass a stupid law, and then they hand it on to the next one. And then they go, oh. So for example, they let Obama pass a lot of accumulate a lot of executive power because they said, oh, we trust Obama and Obama's going to be here forever. It's going to be okay. But then Trump becomes powerful. He gets in power. Yeah. And then the Democrats go, oh, no, you can't pass executive powers because that'll give Trump more power. But it was okay when Obama did it. And on and on and on and on and on it goes. And they accumulate more power all the time.
Yeah, it's a very corrupt game of 4D chess.
Yeah, it's who implements the dystopia, because like right now I'm sure Democrats wouldn't be happy with the dystopian nightmare being implemented by Trump because it's by Trump. But would they have been happy with it under Obama because it was Obama? You see where I'm going with this?
Of course, whoever's cutting the paycheck is whoever they're going to pay the lip service for. You're talking about corrupt sociopathic social actors who were willing to pay lip service to whatever team is cutting them the check, no matter what dystopian policies they'll enact. This is mainstream politics.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's pretty much all of my questions that I've had to go through. So, have you got any other comments to the candidates or to your audience or to the people watching? There's a lot, the audience who's watching nowadays. So, have you got anything else to say about Rachel Haywire and her campaign?
Not specifically, but if you wanted to ask me any questions about my book or my site, I'd be open to just do some chit-chatting or anything of that sort.
So you wrote the New Art Right. What inspired you to write that book? Why is that important to you?
Well, it started off as The New Reaction, which was published on Art Coast Media. I left Art Coast Media because that really wasn't my scene. And I was more interested in appealing to a more creative occult audience that was focused on expressing themselves artistically. And I wanted to kind of create a new movement, as I talk about in my Beyond the Center platform, sort of a realigning of the far left and the far right into a new kind of metaphysical paradigm. So when I wrote the New Right, the New Art Right, can you cut out when I wrote the New Art Right bit? Can you cut that out?
It's live.
Oh shit! Okay, that's all right. Well, when I wrote the New Art Right, which I accidentally pronounced as the New Art Right, I wrote it so I could realign people into a new metaphysical position where they could express themselves artistically and go against political correctness. And it was really important to me because I felt like people needed a space where they could express themselves. So there are essays about why I think the left has gone too far in their censorship, but there are also a lot of weird kind of dystopic essays about transhumanism. One of them is called Dictator Island. It's kind of like this fantasy about what if all the dictators united, and like formed their own little dictator utopia, but there's a surprise ending. It's not what you think it is. I don't want to give it away, but it turns out that like the dictator utopia doesn't work out how you think it will.
Was the name of the island Jackal Island by any chance?
That's a great question. No, it's just called Dictator Island. But now I'm thinking of that one movie with the animals. What was it called? The animal movie with the body parts. I don't know. I'm thinking of like some weird sci-fi film. I don't know. It was really cool. Yeah, it's a fun story because I kind of merge politics, science fiction, and transhumanism with transgressive art. I kind of like put it all together in a blender. So one of the reviewers, he called me like a cyber goth Evola. I'm like, all right, that's cool. So yeah, just having a lot of fun. I've written another chapter called The Kingdom. It's kind of like a book about a group of like neo-reactionary hackers who form like a digital nation state. So yeah, it's just having fun and like speaking to my people,
Okay, so one of the things that you have as a pillar in that is sort of national futurism, this
Yes.
sort of dystopian psychic thing. You talked about a little bit about it at the start. What is national futurism? Why is it important? And who, what, when, where, why, how?
Great. Okay, so national futurism was initially inspired by two things. One, of course, the Italian futurist art movement. Just to be clear, I'm not Mussolini's fascist policies, but the Italian futurist art movement. And additionally, Keith Preston from Attack the System, when he was talking about panarchy, which was different breakaway nations. And the potential for all of these different nations to exist with different ideological stripes. So you could have a socialist nation over here, you could have a libertarian nation over here, you could have a nation of one race over here, a nation of one hobby over here. You could have a nation of egoists over here, and then you could have a nation of weirdo nationalist metalheads over here. So I took that and I turned it into national futurism. So we could have kind of a futurist kind of micro-feudal occult system. And I just really like the idea of creating this hybrid. And I called it national futurism because I wanted to see these breakaway occult nations of the mind occur in like this hyperspace reality. Somebody referred to it as a fusion of the dissident right and the old left, and I liked that description. But at its core, national futurism are these occult breakaway nations of the mind. And I think you can be a national futurist if you're a nationalist or a futurist. It doesn't necessarily mean ethnic separatism, but at the same time, I'm not going to say that if you're a white nationalist, you shouldn't be able to go and form your own nation. I'm just going to say we welcome nationalists of all types, whether you're an occult nationalist and you want to form like a more like Evolian aristocrat of the spirit nation, or you just want to form like a nation of furries. As I mentioned, I'm like, go form a nation of furries. That's cool. That's national futurism for you. It's DIY futurism, DIY nationalism, the nationalism of your choice. I see nations as toys, or imagine a program in which you can design any nation that you want. National futurism is activating that program.
Fascinating. So, if you become the president, would you classify aging as a disease?
I would say no, because I find that slogan to be really overused. But I mean, like in essence, yes. But I just find that slogan to be like annoying. Honestly, like I've heard it so many times. It's like aging is a disease. I'm sorry that it's not the popular thing to say. But I mean, like sure. But I'd say more like aging is something that we need to overcome. I'd put it more like that.
But isn't that slogan built around like FDA and legislative confines?
Yes, it is. I just think that when you call aging a disease, you're maybe paying lip service to like a certain clichéness. I mean, it's an unpopular thing to say. I just think it sounds cliche. I'd rather so that aging is something that we should overcome. I'm a Nietzschean. Aging is something that we must overcome. I just want to say that.
Okay. That's fantastic. Well, I'm out of questions, so
Great.
that's it for me. Only reason is because I want to be fair to the other candidates and not go too much into
Sure.
an interpersonal dialogue with you.
Awesome.
But if you have other questions you want to answer or tell people, that's fine. You still have about half an hour on the clock, so that's great. But I'm only trying to be fair to the other candidates, Mr. Hostapple and Ben Zion.
No, totally. Be fair. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. If anybody wants to check out my dissident media platform, you can visit it at triggerwarning.us. And if you want to go to my campaign website, it is haywire2020.com. And thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah, no problem. That's it from Detonation. Thank you, Rachel Haywire. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we wish you all the best with your campaign and forwarding some of these issues. Some of these issues are fantastic. They're really big issues, and they're going to have a big impact, regardless of what happens. And we look forward to our next discussion, considering whatever happens with the other two candidates. I think you all have very good ideas. We can move into a more informal debate complex with me now. Now the formal part's over. And yeah, you're welcome back to this platform anytime you want.
Great. Thanks for having me. I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Rachel Haywire.